The massive creature lay curled in the darkest corner of the cargo bay, its scales shimmering with an oily black sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Captain Thekmore of the galactic medical transport vessel Healing Wind stood at a safe distance, his forearms crossed in a gesture of frustration that was universal among his kind. 63 standard years, he muttered to his medical officer, a tall, spindly Etherian named Dr. Zeel-Ith. 63 years since the great dragon of Kethmaran lost his sight, and not one species in the known galaxy has been able to help him. The dragon beast, as most called him now, shifted slightly. Even that small movement caused the reinforced floor plating to groan under his immense weight. He was easily 40 meters from snout to tail tip, with wings that could span twice that when fully extended. But those magnificent wings hadn't been spread in decades. What was the point of flying when you couldn't see where you were going? Dr. Zillith consulted her holographic medical chart, her three-fingered hands dancing over the glowing displays. The neural pathways to his optical centers remain intact. The eyes themselves show no structural damage. Every test indicates he should be able to see perfectly, yet... She gestured helplessly at the creature. Yet he remains as blind as the day the cosmic storm damaged his ship. Thekmore finished. The Galactic Council has spent more credits on specialists for this one being than most worlds see in a lifetime. Crystalline healers from the Shatter Realms, biomanipulators from the Core Worlds, even those reality-bending mystics from the Outer Rim, nothing. The dragon beast's massive head turned toward them, though his actions showed he was following their voices rather than seeing them. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the cargo bay like distant thunder. "I can hear you discussing my condition, Captain. As always." Thekmore's primary arms dropped to his sides in embarrassment. "Forgive me, Great One. I meant no disrespect. There is nothing to forgive. I have grown accustomed to being discussed as a curiosity rather than addressed as a person." The dragon beast's tone held no bitterness, only a weary acceptance that somehow made it worse. "Tell me, where are we traveling to this time? Another specialist who will prod and poke and declare my case impossible?" Dr. Zillith stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Actually, Great One, this time is different. We're heading to a small world called Earth. The inhabitants there, well, they're a relatively new species to our galactic community. Humans, they call themselves." The dragon beast let out what might have been a laugh, though it sounded more like a controlled rock slide. Humans? The Death Worlders? The ones who supposedly come from a planet so hostile that it breeds natural warriors? "Those very ones," Thekmore confirmed, though the reports about them are contradictory. Some claim they're savage fighters who view everything as a potential threat. Others insist they're surprisingly peaceful, even compassionate. What they are, Dr. Zillith added, is unpredictable. Their approach to medicine is unlike anything we've encountered. While we focus on advanced technology and precisely calibrated treatments, humans seem to combine science with intuition, instinct. It's difficult to translate their concept properly. The dragon beast was quiet for a long moment. Outside the viewing ports, stars streaked by as the ship maintained its faster-than-light velocity. "And why would the Galactic Council send me to these humans? If the greatest minds in known space cannot help me, what hope do primitives from a death world have?" "Because," came a new voice from the cargo bay entrance, "sometimes the greatest minds overthink the simplest problems." All three beings turned toward the speaker. She was human, obviously, though neither the captain nor the doctor had detected her approach. That was unsettling, considering their advanced sensory equipment. She stood perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair braided down her back and clothes that seemed to be made from natural fibers rather than the synthetic materials most spacefaring beings preferred. but it was her eyes that caught their attention. They were the color of deep forest shadows, and they seemed to hold depths that spoke of knowledge far older than her apparent age. "I am Elena Yagovna," she said, stepping into the cargo bay without invitation. "I understand you have been trying to cure blindness." Captain Theckmore's communication translator struggled with her name, producing an odd clicking sound followed by what sounded like wind through trees. "You're the human specialist we're supposed to meet, but we're still 12 hours out from Earth." Elena smiled, and there was something unsettling about that expression. Not threatening exactly, but knowing. "Distance means different things to different people, Captain. May I approach the great dragon?" The dragon beast's massive head swiveled toward her voice with sudden interest. "You show proper respect in your address, small human. Most refer to me as the beast or the patient, or simply it." "My grandmother taught me that names have power," Elena replied, walking toward the enormous creature without any sign of fear. "And that treating symptoms instead of causes is the fastest way to make a problem worse." Dr. Zealith moved to intercept her. "Please, human Elena, we must follow proper medical protocols. Sterilization procedures, protective equipment, formal examination parameters." Elena paused and looked at the Etherian doctor with those deep, dark eyes. "Tell me, doctor, in all your examinations, have you ever asked the great dragon what he was doing when his sight was lost?" "Of course we have," Dr. Zillith replied stiffly. "He was piloting his ship through a cosmic storm. The electromagnetic interference damaged his neural pathways." "No," Elena said quietly, still moving toward the dragon beast. "I mean, what was he doing? What was his purpose, his mission, his heart's desire at that moment?" The cargo bay fell silent except for the subtle hum of the ship's engines. The dragon beast's great head lowered until it was only a few meters above Elena, though she showed no fear of the massive creature that could swallow her whole, without effort. "I was flying home," the dragon beast said finally, his voice softer than they had ever heard it. "My daughter had just hatched. I was bringing her gifts from the far worlds. Crystalline singing stones from Vega, living art from the spiral gardens, rare metals that would help her grow strong. I had been away for 3 years gathering these treasures." Elena nodded, as if this information confirmed something she had already suspected. "And when the storm hit? What happened to the gifts?" "They were lost. The cargo bay was breached. Everything scattered into space." The dragon beast's voice grew even quieter. "When I finally reached home, I had nothing to offer her, nothing to show for my years away. I was a father returning empty-handed to a child I barely knew." "And your sight?" "Gone the moment I realized the gifts were lost. The electromagnetic pulse struck at that exact instant." Elena reached into a pouch at her side and withdrew a small glass vial filled with what appeared to be ordinary water. But as she held it up, the liquid inside swirled with colors that had no names in any galactic language. "Great dragon," she said, "may I tell you something about human medicine? We have a saying, the body keeps the score. Sometimes when our hearts break, our bodies find ways to express that pain. Your eyes are perfect. Your neural pathways function normally, but your spirit has been telling your body that you don't deserve to see the world that took everything from you." Dr. Zelith stepped forward, her scanner beeping frantically. "That's impossible. Psychosomatic blindness cannot persist for decades. The neural pathways would have adapted, compensated." "Would they?" Elena asked. "Or would they continue to honor the will of a being powerful enough to bend space with his flight, strong enough to carry the weight of his own guilt for 63 years? She unscrewed the cap of the vial, and immediately the air filled with the scent of deep forests, morning rain, and something else, something that reminded each being present of their earliest, happiest memory. "These are not ordinary eye drops," Elena said, holding the dragon beast's attention with her voice. They were made from the tears of regret, distilled with the essence of forgiveness, and blessed with the understanding that love does not require gifts to be real. Captain Theckmore's translator was producing confused static. Tears of regret? Essence of forgiveness? These are not medical terms. Elena looked at him with those ancient eyes in her young face. No, Captain. They are something far more powerful. They are truth. She turned back to the dragon beast. Great One, before I offer this remedy, I must ask, are you ready to see the world again? Are you ready to accept that your daughter's love never required the gifts you lost? That perhaps the greatest gift you could have given her was simply coming home? The dragon beast was silent for so long that the ship's engines seemed to grow louder in the quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a tremor that had nothing to do with age or weakness. I have spent so many years in darkness. What if the world I see is not the one I remember? What if my daughter has grown to hate the father who abandoned her for treasure and returned with nothing? Elena stepped closer, close enough to place her small human hand on the massive creature's snout. Her touch was warm, and somehow it carried with it the certainty of seasons changing, of wounds healing, of tomorrow being different from today. Then you will see truth, she said simply. And truth, no matter how painful, is always better than the stories we tell ourselves in the dark. The dragon beast closed his enormous eyes that had not seen light for 63 years, and lowered his head until his snout rested gently in Elena's hands. I am ready, he whispered. Elena raised the vial, and as she did, every piece of advanced medical equipment in the cargo bay began registering readings that shouldn't have been possible. Energy signatures that didn't match any known form of treatment, biochemical reactions that followed no documented patterns, and neural activity that sparked in areas of the dragon beast's brain that had been dormant for decades. But perhaps most remarkable of all was the expression on Elena's face as she prepared to administer the strange remedy. It was the look of someone who understood that the most powerful medicine in the universe had nothing to do with technology and everything to do with giving broken hearts permission to heal. Outside the viewing ports, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the small drama playing out in the cargo bay. But within that metal container hurtling through space, something was about to happen that would challenge everything the galactic medical community thought they knew about healing, about humans, and about the kinds of miracles that were possible when someone was willing to treat the soul as well as the body. Elena lifted the vial toward the dragon beast's closed eyes, and the liquid inside began to glow with a light that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the visible spectrum. A light that spoke of ancient wisdom, of grandmother's remedies, and of the peculiar human understanding that sometimes the most profound healings happen not through advanced science, but through the simple act of being seen and understood. The moment had arrived to discover whether a human woman carrying her grandmother's legacy could succeed where the greatest medical minds in the galaxy had failed. As Elena lifted the glowing vial, the air in the cargo bay began to change. It wasn't just the scent, though that continued to intensify, carrying with it memories of Earth forests and something indefinably older. It was the very quality of the space around them. Dr. Zealith's instruments were registering energy patterns that defied classification, while Captain Theckmore found himself involuntarily taking a step backward as his survival instincts detected something his conscious mind couldn't understand. Great Dragon, Elena said softly, I need you to open your eyes. The massive creature's eyelids trembled. It has been so long. What if there is only darkness still? Then we will face that darkness together, Elena replied. But you must open your eyes for the remedy to work. Trust is part of the medicine. Slowly, with obvious effort that spoke of decades of resignation, the dragon beast opened his eyes. They were magnificent, large as dinner plates, with irises that shifted between deep blue and violet, surrounded by silver that seemed to hold flecks of stardust. But they stared ahead without focus, without recognition, without the spark of sight. Elena held the vial steady above the dragon beast's right eye. This may feel strange at first. The healing isn't just in your eyes. It goes deeper. You may see things, remember things. Don't fight the memories. Let them come. She tilted the vial, and a single drop of the swirling, luminescent liquid fell. The effect was immediate and shocking. The dragon beast's entire body convulsed, not in pain, but in something that looked like recognition. His wings, folded against his sides for decades, suddenly spread partially, blocking out half the cargo bay lights. A sound escaped him, part roar, part cry, part something that had no equivalent in any species' vocal range. "What's happening?" Dr. Zillith demanded, her scanners now producing a constant stream of incomprehensible data. "His neural activity is off the charts. His biochemistry is fluctuating in impossible ways." Elena didn't answer immediately. She was watching the dragon beast's face intently, her own features set in concentration. "He's remembering," she said finally. "The drops don't just heal the eyes, they heal the heart that told the eyes to stop seeing." The dragon beast's massive body shuddered again, and when he spoke, his voice was younger somehow, filled with an emotion that had been absent for 63 years. "I can see... No, not see. Not yet. But I can remember seeing the colors. Oh, the colors I had forgotten." Captain Theckmore activated his emergency communication system. "Medical Bay, prepare for possible emergency intervention. We have an unknown treatment in progress." "Captain, no," Elena said without looking away from the dragon beast. "Your medical bay cannot help with this. This healing happens in places your instruments cannot measure." She moved to the dragon beast's left eye and allowed another drop to fall. This time, the creature's reaction was even more intense. His great head lifted, turned left and right as if following something only he could perceive. "I can see her," he whispered, and there was wonder in his voice. "My daughter. She's so small, just hatched. Her scales are the color of new copper and her eyes..." He paused, a sound escaping him that might have been a sob. "Her eyes are the same color as mine." Elena nodded encouragingly. "Keep watching. What else do you see?" "She's reaching for me. Her tiny claws. She wants to touch my snout, but she's too small, too weak. I lower my head and she places one perfect little claw right here." The dragon beast touched a spot just above his nostril with one massive talon. She makes a sound. Not quite a chirp, not quite a roar. It's the first sound she's ever made, and it's for me. Dr. Zillith was frantically trying to make sense of her readings. Impossible. His brain activity suggests he's actually seeing these events. But his optic nerves are still non-functional. How can he be processing visual information? "Because," Elena said, preparing a third drop, "sight isn't just about eyes and nerves. Sometimes it's about having permission to see what was always there." The third drop fell, and this time the dragon beast's entire body began to glow with a faint, opalescent light that seemed to come from within his scales. His breathing changed, becoming deeper, more rhythmic. The chaotic energy that had been radiating from him settled into something that felt more like music than random electromagnetic discharge. "Tell me what you see now," Elena encouraged. The dragon beast's voice, when he spoke, was thick with emotion. I see the moment I left her. She was 3 months old then, old enough to understand that I was going away. She followed me to the launch bay, too young to fly but trying anyway, her little wings flapping uselessly as she tried to keep up with my steps." His great head bowed. She cried when I entered my ship. Such a small sound, but it echoed through the entire bay. I told myself I was doing this for her, gathering treasures that would make her strong, give her advantages in life. But the truth— What was the truth? Elena asked gently. The truth was that I didn't know how to be a father. I knew how to be a hunter, a warrior, a traveler between stars, but a small being who needed me to simply be present. That terrified me more than any cosmic storm. Elena nodded as if this confession was exactly what she had been waiting for. And when the storm hit? When you lost the gifts? I realized I had been running away. The gifts were an excuse. I could have stayed home, could have learned to be the father she needed. Instead, I spent 3 years gathering objects to substitute for my presence. The dragon beast's voice cracked. When the cargo bay was breached and everything was lost, it felt like justice. I didn't deserve to see the disappointment in her eyes. So you chose not to see anything at all, Elena said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I chose blindness over facing what I had done. Elena reached into her pouch again and withdrew a second vial. This one contained liquid that seemed to contain tiny stars, swirling in patterns that suggested vast distances and infinite possibilities. This is the hardest part, Great Dragon. This vial contains what my grandmother called the courage to see clearly. It will show you not just the past, but the truth of the past. Are you ready? The dragon beast was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the ship continued its journey through space, but the cargo bay had become something separate from the normal flow of time and space. Dr. Zillith had stopped trying to understand her readings and was simply watching in fascination. Captain Thekmore had dismissed his medical alert, recognizing that whatever was happening here was beyond anything in their standard protocols. I am ready, the dragon beast said finally. Elena opened the second vial, and immediately the air filled with what sounded like distant singing, not quite music, not quite voices, but something that spoke directly to the soul. She tilted it over the dragon beast's right eye. The effect this time was different. Instead of convulsions or glowing, the dragon beast simply became very, very still. His breathing slowed until it was barely perceptible. His massive form seemed to settle as if he were sinking into the deck plating. What do you see? Elena asked after several minutes. When the dragon beast spoke, his voice was different again, clearer, more certain. I see her waiting for me, my daughter. But she's not the hatchling I remember. She's grown. She's beautiful, strong, graceful. Her scales have darkened to deep bronze, and her wings— He paused, wonder in his voice. Her wings span twice my own. She's become magnificent. Is she angry with you? No, she's not angry. She's happy to see me. She rushes forward, and I realize she's been waiting here in our home caverns for 63 years, waiting for me to come back. Elena applied the second drop to his left eye. What is she saying to you? She's saying— The dragon beast's voice broke. She's saying that she never needed the gifts. She's saying that she understood, even as a hatchling, that I was afraid. She forgave me before I even left. She forgave me every day I was gone. She forgave me every day of my blindness. Tears were now flowing from the dragon beast's eyes, actual tears that sparkled with the same opalescent light that had been emanating from his scales. Where they fell, tiny flowers bloomed on the metal deck plating, impossible flowers that shouldn't have been able to survive in the artificial environment of the ship. Dr. Zillith knelt and touched one of the flowers. It felt real, solid, but her scanner showed it was composed of materials that didn't exist in any periodic table. One more drop, Elena said, her own voice now touched with emotion. The final one. This will complete the healing, but only if you're truly ready to forgive yourself. I don't know if I can. Look at your daughter again. What does she need from you? The dragon beast focused on something only he could see. She needs her father to come home. Not the perfect father with perfect gifts, just her father. Elena tilted the vial one final time. As the last drop fell, something extraordinary happened. Light began to emanate not just from the dragon beast's scales, but from Elena herself. For just a moment, her human form seemed to shimmer and shift, and those watching caught a glimpse of something ancient and powerful, a figure that commanded respect from forces older than star systems. The light intensified until it filled the entire cargo bay, then suddenly dimmed to normal levels. In the ensuing quiet, the dragon beast's eyes focused on Elena's face. He could see. "You," he whispered, staring at her with wonder. "You're not just human, are you?" Elena smiled, and for the first time since she had arrived, she looked like exactly what she appeared to be, a young woman carrying her grandmother's wisdom. "I am human, but my grandmother was something else. She taught me that the most powerful magic isn't in changing the world. It's in helping people see the world as it truly is." The dragon beast slowly raised his head, looking around the cargo bay as if seeing it for the first time. His gaze took in Captain Thekmore's amazed expression, Dr. Zeolith's frantically beeping instruments, the impossible flowers blooming on the deck. But when his eyes returned to Elena, they held a depth of gratitude that seemed to encompass the entire universe. "My daughter," he said suddenly. "I must go to her. I must tell her." "She already knows," Elena said gently. "But yes, you should go to her. You should go home." As she spoke, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Thekmore's voice came through, though he was standing right there in the cargo bay. "This is impossible," said his recorded voice. "We're receiving a transmission from Kethmoran, the great dragon's daughter. She says she can sense that her father has awakened. She's requesting immediate course correction to their home system." Everyone stared at the intercom, then at Captain Thekmore himself. "I didn't record that message," he said slowly. Elena began packing away her vials, her movements efficient and practiced. "Distance means different things to different people, Captain. Love is the fastest form of communication in the universe." The dragon beast was now fully upright, his massive form somehow seeming lighter, more graceful than it had since they had first brought him aboard. His eyes, clear and bright, tracked movement with the precision of perfect sight. "Elena Yagovna," he said formally, "daughter of Baba Yaga, healer of the broken-hearted. I am in your debt." Elena looked up from her packing, surprise flickering across her features. "How did you—" "Your eyes," the dragon beast said simply. "Now that I can see clearly, I recognize the ancient wisdom they carry. Your grandmother was known throughout the galaxy, though few realized it. She helped my own grandmother centuries ago, when the Crystal Wars left our people broken." Elena nodded slowly. She said her work would echo through generations. I'm beginning to understand what she meant. She finished packing and moved toward the cargo bay exit. "Captain Thekimore, I suggest you adjust course for Kethmoran immediately. The Great Dragon has a daughter to reunite with, and the galaxy has just learned that sometimes the best medicine comes from the most unexpected sources." As she reached the doorway, Elena paused and looked back. The dragon beast was stretching his wings for the first time in decades, and the sight was magnificent. But more than that, his eyes held something they hadn't carried for 63 years. Hope. The healing wind dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kethmoran system with a precision that spoke of Captain Thekmore's decades of experience, but even he seemed shaken by what they found waiting for them. "Captain," his communications officer called from the bridge, We're detecting over 200 vessels in the immediate area, ships from every major species in the Galactic Council, plus several I don't recognize. Through the cargo bay's main viewing port, the Dragon Beast could see them all. Sleek Etherian medical ships, massive Krogan research vessels, the crystalline structures that housed Shatter Realm healers, and dozens of others. They hung in space like a metal constellation, all focused on a single point of brilliant blue-green light that was the planet Keth-Moran. Word travels fast in space, Elena observed, though she seemed entirely unsurprised by the gathering, especially when it involves the impossible becoming possible. Dr. Zilith was still running scans on the Dragon Beast, her instruments now producing readings that actually made sense for the first time in 3 days. Perfect visual acuity, neural pathways functioning at optimal levels. It's as if he was never blind at all. She looked up from her scanner, confusion evident in her 3-fingered hands. But that's not possible. Tissue doesn't regenerate that completely. The tissue was never damaged, Elena reminded her gently. Remember? The blindness was never about his eyes. A new voice interrupted their conversation, coming through the ship's communication system. It was melodious, powerful, and undeniably draconic, but lighter than the Dragon Beast's bass rumble. Father? The single word carried across space with such hope and joy that even the most cynical beings on the various ships found themselves inexplicably moved. The Dragon Beast moved to the communication panel with a grace he hadn't displayed in decades. His massive claws, so delicate compared to his size, activated the transmission system. "Ithlira," he said, and Elena noticed that his voice carried a warmth she hadn't heard before. "My daughter, my beautiful, patient daughter. Father, they told me you could see again. They told me a human healer accomplished what no one else could. Is it true?" The Dragon Beast looked at Elena, his expression holding gratitude that seemed to encompass the entire universe. "It is true, my child. But more than that, I can see clearly for the first time in my life, not just with my eyes, but with my heart. May I? May I come aboard, Father? I have waited so long to look into your eyes again." Captain Thekmore stepped forward. "Great Dragon, our cargo bay is large, but your daughter has grown considerably," the Dragon Beast finished, with what might have been pride. "Yes, Captain, she will not fit in the cargo bay, but perhaps—" He looked at Elena questioningly. Elena smiled. "Space is more flexible than most people think. Captain, request permission to dock with the largest vessel in the fleet. I believe we'll find they're more than willing to provide a suitable meeting place." The largest ship turned out to be a Galactic Medical Council research vessel the size of a small moon. Its commander, a Vrelian named Supreme Healer Cathara, personally granted them docking privileges in the main assembly hall, a space originally designed for interspecies medical conferences that could accommodate beings of virtually any size. As the healing wind settled into the docking cradle, Elena made a request that surprised everyone. "I'd like all senior medical personnel from every ship to be present for the reunion. This isn't just a personal moment, it's a learning opportunity." Dr. Zilith frowned. "Surely the great dragon and his daughter deserve privacy for their first meeting in over 60 years. "They do," Elena agreed, "but they also deserve witnesses to their joy. And the galaxy's medical community deserves to understand what they just witnessed." The assembly hall was massive, easily large enough to hold 100 beings the size of the Dragon Beast. When they arrived, over 300 of the galaxy's most prominent medical professionals were already waiting. Crystalline healers whose bodies refracted light into healing frequencies, biomanipulators whose very touch could restructure living tissue, reality benders who worked with forces that existed beyond normal space-time. All of them had come to see what a single human woman with simple glass vials had accomplished. The Dragon Beast entered the hall with a dignity that had been missing from his bearing for decades. His head was held high, his wings partially spread, his massive form moving with the fluid grace of a being completely comfortable in his own body. But it was his eyes that drew gasps from the assembled medical professionals. They were bright, alert, and filled with an anticipation that seemed to illuminate his entire being. Then the far doors opened, and Athlira entered. She was magnificent. Where her father's scales were the deep black of space between stars, hers had matured to a bronze that seemed to hold all the colors of sunset. She was larger than him, her wingspan impressive, even folded against her sides, but she moved with the same fluid grace. Her eyes, the same violet blue as her father's, immediately focused on the dragon beast with an intensity that spoke of decades of longing. For a moment neither moved. 63 years of separation hung between them like a tangible thing. Then Athlira spoke, her voice carrying across the vast hall. "Father, you look like yourself again." The dragon beast's reply was so soft that the hall's acoustic enhancement system had to amplify it for the assembled beings to hear. "Athlira, my daughter, you have grown so beautiful, so strong. You became everything I hoped you would be, and I wasn't here to see it happen. But you're here now," she said simply, and began moving toward him. What followed was not just a reunion. It was a demonstration of the dragon species' emotional capacity that most of the galaxy had never witnessed. When father and daughter embraced, their massive forms intertwining with a tenderness that seemed impossible for beings of their size and power, several of the watching medical professionals found themselves experiencing their own species' equivalent of tears. But Elena was watching the medical community as much as she was watching the reunion. She saw the moment when understanding began to dawn on their faces. Supreme Healer Cathara was the first to speak. "The human's treatment," she said slowly, her voice carrying across the hall through her translator, "was not medical in nature, was it?" Elena stepped forward, and suddenly all attention was focused on her small human form in the center of the vast assembly. "What is medicine?" she asked the gathering. "Is it only the manipulation of biological systems, the application of technology to repair damage?" A Etherian specialist raised one of her 4 hands. "Medicine is the science of healing, the systematic application of knowledge to restore optimal function." "Then what I did was absolutely medical," Elena replied. "I identified the true cause of the patient's condition and applied the appropriate remedy. The fact that the cause was psychological rather than physical, and the remedy was emotional rather than technological, doesn't make it less valid." A crystalline healer's form flashed with patterns of skeptical light. "But the substances you used, tears of regret, essence of forgiveness, these are not scientifically quantifiable compounds." Elena smiled, and for a moment that smile seemed to carry the weight of ancient wisdom. "Aren't they? Every emotion produces biochemical changes. Every thought creates neural pathway modifications. Every act of forgiveness releases specific neurotransmitters. The fact that your instruments can't measure something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means your instruments are limited." Supreme Healer Cathara stepped forward, her imposing Vrelian form dwarfing even the other large beings present. "Human Elena, are you suggesting that our entire approach to medicine is fundamentally flawed?" "Not flawed," Elena said diplomatically. "Incomplete. You focus on symptoms because symptoms are measurable, quantifiable, treatable with technology. But humans understand that sometimes the symptom is not the disease. Sometimes the disease is in the heart, the spirit, the connection between beings." Dr. Zillith had been silent through this exchange, but now she spoke up. "But how do we learn to treat spiritual ailments? How do we quantify forgiveness or measure the healing power of love?" Elena looked at her with those deep, knowing eyes. "The same way you learned everything else. Through observation, experimentation, And most importantly, through understanding that the patient is not just a collection of biological systems, they are a complete being with a complete history. She gestured toward the dragon beast and Ythlira, who were now engaged in quiet conversation, their massive heads close together as they shared 63 years of separated experiences. Every being in this galaxy carries wounds that your scanners cannot detect. Loneliness, guilt, fear, loss. These create real physical symptoms. Depression suppresses immune function. Anxiety disrupts neural pathways. Grief can literally break hearts. A young Andromedan medic raised a tentacle. But if this is true, then why have only humans developed treatments for these conditions? Elena was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her words carried a sadness that spoke of deep understanding. Because humans come from a death world. We evolved surrounded by loss, by separation, by the constant awareness that everything we love is temporary. We had to learn to heal emotional wounds, or we would never have survived. She paused, looking around the assembly. Other species developed in safer environments. Your medical advances focused on physical healing because emotional trauma was rare. But as the galaxy becomes more connected, as beings travel farther from home and face experiences their evolution never prepared them for, emotional wounds are becoming more common. Supreme Healer Cathara's translator produced a sound that might have been thoughtful humming. You are saying that human medicine is not primitive, it is specialized, adapted to conditions that other species are only now encountering. Exactly, Elena confirmed. And that specialization is desperately needed. How many beings across the galaxy are suffering from conditions that no scanner can detect, no surgery can repair, no medication can cure? How many are blind not because their eyes don't work, but because their hearts have decided they don't deserve to see? The assembly fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. These were the finest medical minds in the galaxy, and they were realizing that there was an entire dimension of healing they had never considered. The dragon beast's voice interrupted the contemplative silence. If I may address the assembly? All attention turned to him. Standing beside his daughter, he looked like an entirely different being than the broken creature they had brought aboard the Healing Wind just days before. For 63 years, you tried to heal me. Every one of you. Your technologies were flawless, your dedication admirable, your intentions pure. But you were trying to fix a machine when what needed healing was a father's heart. He looked at Elena with profound respect. This human woman saw immediately what none of you could see, despite your vast knowledge and sophisticated instruments. She understood that my blindness was not a medical condition. It was a choice I had made to avoid facing my own perceived failures. Ythlira spoke up, her voice carrying clearly across the hall. My father spent 63 years believing he had failed me, but I never felt abandoned. I felt loved by a father who cared enough to search the galaxy for gifts worthy of his daughter. When those gifts were lost, I was sad for his disappointment, not for my loss. She looked directly at the assembled medical professionals. All these years, you tried to restore his sight so he could see the world. But what he needed was to see himself clearly, to see that he was already the father I needed him to be. Elena stepped forward again. This is what human medicine offers to the galactic community. Not competition with your technologies, but partnership. We see the wounds that instruments cannot detect. We heal the hearts that conventional medicine cannot touch. And we do this not because we are superior, but because our harsh world taught us that emotional healing is just as crucial as physical repair. Supreme Healer Cathara activated her personal communication system. Emergency session of the Galactic Medical Council. Immediate integration protocols for human emotional healing techniques. All medical personnel are ordered to report for supplementary training. She looked at Elena with something approaching awe. Human healer, the Council formally requests that your people establish medical academies throughout the galaxy. We have much to learn from each other. Elena nodded solemnly. My grandmother always said that the best medicine comes from understanding the whole being, not just the broken parts. We would be honored to share what we know. As the various medical professionals began activating their own communication systems, preparing to revolutionize galactic medicine, Elena quietly approached the dragon beast and his daughter. How do you feel? She asked simply. The dragon beast looked at her, then at Ithlira, then at the assembled beings who were already discussing revolutionary changes to their medical practices. I feel, he said slowly, like I can see everything clearly for the first time in my life, not just with my eyes, but with my understanding. And what I see is a galaxy where beings from different worlds can heal each other in ways they never imagined possible. Ithlira nodded agreement. Father, what will you do now? The dragon beast spread his wings fully for the first time in 63 years. The sight was magnificent, and it drew gasps from throughout the assembly. I will go home with my daughter. I will learn to be the father I should have been. And perhaps, he looked at Elena, perhaps I will learn to help other beings find their way out of their own darkness. Elena smiled, and in that smile was the satisfaction of work well done. My grandmother would say that the best healers are those who have learned to heal themselves. As the great assembly began to disperse, each group returning to their ships with new understanding and revolutionary plans, Elena found herself standing alone near the viewing ports. The stars outside looked the same as always, but somehow the space between them felt different now, more connected, more full of possibility. Dr. Zilyith approached her, scanner still in hand, though she seemed reluctant to use it. Elena Yagovna, daughter of Baba Yaga, I have one more question. Yes? Your grandmother's remedies, the tears of regret, the essence of forgiveness. What are they really? What actual compounds create those effects? Elena looked out at the stars for a long moment before answering. Water, she said simply. Just water. But water that has been charged with intention, blessed with understanding, and administered with love. The healing doesn't come from the drops, Doctor. It comes from being seen, being understood, and being given permission to forgive yourself. Dr. Zilith's scanner clattered to the floor as she stared at the human woman. You mean all of it? The spectacular healing, the neural regeneration, the restoration of sight. It was all him? It was all him, Elena confirmed. I just gave him permission to heal himself. Sometimes that's all medicine really is, giving someone permission to get better. As Elena walked away, preparing to return to Earth and share the news that humanity had just become the galactic community's newest teachers, the sound of dragon song filled the assembly hall. Father and daughter, reunited at last, were singing the ancient harmonies of their people, songs of homecoming, of forgiveness, and of sight restored. The galaxy would never be quite the same again, and somewhere in the vast network of space, other beings suffering from invisible wounds felt a strange stirring of hope, as if the universe itself had just learned a new way to heal.